Thank you.
Yes.
On deck, we have LaRue. But before we bring on our next performer, first, a stupid joke. What's the difference between porn and Disney? Porn really wants you to love your stepmother. And now, put your hands together for our next performer, Ski! Ski's going to talk science and politics again, because that's what I do, and that's what's in the news, and that's what's relevant and topical right now. Today's big bad word, or this week's big bad word, is acetaminophen. And Trump announcing at one of the meetings that they had uncovered the root cause of autism. Which is just not true, just patently not true. Autism looks like it has a lot of variables that feed into it. And a lot of it's just genetics. It might be a side effect of being who we are as humans. It turns out you can make some interesting predictions as to how likely your children are to have autism if you look at kind of the majors. If you have college people, parents, look at their majors. You can be like, I think I know who's more likely to get autism. And that's interesting. It seems like maybe there's some good reasons to mix yourself up. Don't just marry English majors to English majors or math majors to math majors. But let's talk about acetaminophen. Acetaminophen, Tylenol, has been around for a long time, and it's one of these fairly heavily studied drugs because it can be genuinely bad for you. If you overdose, if you take more than the recommended amount of Tylenol, it will start to destroy your liver, more than likely. It's not good for your liver. But as far as any connection between acetaminophen and ADD or autism, there's been a lot of studies over the years, and most of the studies say either there's no effect or there's a very, very small effect. And the study that Trump and RFK are grandstanding around, waving their hands in the air for, and making all of these outrageous claims about, are based off of a meta-analysis of like 47 other studies throughout the years. They took a whole pile of studies and they went through it, and it's pretty good science. It's a meta-analysis, but it's not a study. It's not like they actually went out and got people and did research, placebo, blind test, double-blind test. They just looked at other studies, compared them, took a look at the quality of the various studies and said, okay, if these are all the studies, and these are the ones that are kind of meh, and these are the ones that are okay, and these are the outstanding ones, what do we think about the actual chance of acetaminophen causing these kind of problems? And in the end, they're like, it seems as though it does have a very small effect, but given how many pregnant mothers take Tylenol, this could actually have a really pronounced effect. It could be showing up a lot in our society because of this. The authors then go on to note, what we have here is correlation, not causation. And that's really important. And it's also something that RFK and Trump don't give a flying fuck about. They're like, there's a study, and they love to do this. There's one study that we agree with, therefore that is the truth. That is real. And they pick it up and they walk around on stage and they say all of these things that are just patently untrue about it. It's not the cause of autism, as if that's it, that's the smoking gun. And it's not even proven, and let's talk about why. In 2024, because of some of these other studies, and because, as I mentioned, acetaminophen is a pretty heavily studied drug. The Swedes had been running a long-term study where they took a look at this. Now, one of the problems that they have with the previous studies is you can look for acetaminophen inside of the umbilical cord blood and use that as kind of a proxy for, did the mother take acetaminophen during pregnancy or not? And outside of just self-reporting, because sometimes you forget. But what they don't cover is, can you separate this? Like, is it something in the household? Is it something genetic? Is it something about the lifestyle or what they eat or where they live or what's in their environment or something else? Or is it just because of acetaminophen? And the only way to do that study is if you could find information about multiple kids from the same mother. Because if you have multiple kids from the same mother, you'd be able to measure all of their differences and say, yeah, you're right, it looks like acetaminophen for this one kid that we could detect it in did seem to lead to an increase in ADD or autism, but it's also a way to get rid of that noise. And at the end of this study, that had a huge number of people involved in it as part of the study, because Sweden maintains excellent records, health records about their population. They were able to say, it's purely noise. The studies that other group was talking about, the big meta-study of 47 other studies, it looks interesting, but when you start comparing it to siblings, you see that it goes away, that noise goes away. There's something else that's causing this ADD, that's causing this autism, and it doesn't seem to be acetaminophen, because when we look at siblings, with or without that acetaminophen, we see the same stuff. And this is what I want to talk to you about today. Whenever you read science, whenever you get scientific news from a politician, you probably shouldn't. Just don't. There are other, better, more reputable people out there who are talking about this, who know what they're talking about, and you shouldn't even get your science from major headlines like CNN or BBC or Fox or any of those, because honestly, they do a pretty shitty job too. You have to find somebody who's a good science communicator, and they're going to say all kinds of things that fill you with absolutely no confidence, because that's how most science works. They're not going to say, this is the cause. They're going to say, well, we did a bunch of studies, we took a look at things, and it turns out this is pretty closely tied, and we removed all these variables. It looked as though this was the primary driver of this thing. And we're going to do some more studies, because that's how science works. Science is a conversation where a group of people are like, we really want to know about subject X. Maybe it's acetaminophen, maybe it's autism, maybe it's the melting point of crystals at 0G or something like that. But whatever it is, these people are going to get together and they're going to have a conversation. They're going to be like, I did a study under these conditions and I got this result and I think it means this. And then other people are just going to be like, no, you forgot to think about this, and what about this? Did you try this? What if it was because of this? And they're going to bounce this tennis ball back and forth for probably a decade or 2 or 3. And you'll never get to a place where they're like, by gum, that's the solution. They're going to say, well, we've argued out every possible scenario we know of that we can think of, and this is what looks to be true. This is how almost all of the great science that you're used to happened. Einstein just didn't walk up and say, E equals mc squared, bitches, and throw it down. Even Einstein was totally lambasted by his peers. They're like, whatever, man, that is not true, and I'll prove it to you. And Einstein's like, yeah, bring it, let's do this shit. And back and forth, and some of Einstein's things were so amazing because they seemed so improbable. He's like, I think you're going to find cosmic background radiation from the Big Bang. And everyone's like, huh? No. We can test this. Hold on. Let's go to Antarctica and set up a giant fucking telescope. Holy shit, there it is. Motherfucker, he was right. Even Einstein got pulled to the floor in question, got dressed down. Every scientific study that's worth anything has exactly that happen. It gets called to the floor, it gets dressed down, it gets the shit kicked out of it, and if it stands up at the end and says, I didn't hear no bell, then maybe it's real. So don't take your scientific advice from Trump. Don't take it from RFK. Don't take it from Biden. Don't take it from any politician. None of them should be speaking about science unless they're just parroting something that an actual expert in the field told them to say. Thank you.